Welcome to the True and Constant podcast presented by Gamma Phi Beta sorority in celebration of 150 years of sisterhood. Each month, incredible alumni of our sisterhood join us to celebrate their stories, experiences, and pearls of wisdom in Gamma Phi Beta and beyond. We are your hosts, Emma Oremus of Gamma Tau chapter and Lex Stewart of Eta Omicron chapter.
Today, we are joined by our Gamma Phi Beta sister from the University of British Columbia Alpha Lambda chapter. Nikola Girke is a sailor and windsurfer who has participated in 5 Olympics, achieving a top 10 in the world across 3 different sports disciplines. She is currently an entrepreneur and founder of the company Own Your Podium Coaching. Through this platform, she provides certified coaching to help professionals create a life and career they love. Please join us in welcoming Nikola to the show. Nikola.
Hi. Hello. It's lovely to be here with you guys.
Yes.
Yay.
So just a note for our audience. Lex and I have actually had the honor of talking to Nikola before and got to hear her story. And we love her. Her story is absolutely incredible. So we are so excited for all of you to hear a little bit more from her as well.
Thank you so much again for joining us, Nikola. It's great to we get double the time with you, which is not what we expected, but so welcome.
I just love hearing about your experiences. So it's a pleasure. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. I'm wondering if we can, my brain works timeline like chronologically. And so I'd really love for us to start in sort of the Olympic beginnings for you. So one of the pieces that is really stands out in your background is your Olympic experience. You've been to the Olympics 5 different times. I'd love to hear how that journey started for you. Was the Olympics something you always wanted to go to? Is that sort of the end point always? How did that start for you, your journey to the Olympics?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it didn't just all of a sudden start. It started at sailing summer school or summer camp when I was 8 or 9 years old. And my dad was a passionate sailor. And so, we got put in sailing summer camp and it was super fun. I fell in love with it and I just wanted to do it every day. And so my summers became sailing summer camp. And when you do something that you love all the time, chances are that you get better. And over the years, I became better. And the natural transition was to race them. And that was super fun. And, the more you kind of race, the better you get. And then you start traveling around with it and doing bigger and bigger competitions. And it wasn't until maybe grade 11 or 12 where the Olympics was kind of even a thought in my head. I'd done youth worlds, but that was, a very different kind of, it was the top of the youth class, but not the Olympics. And then after kind of high school, I went to university and, my sailing partner went also to university and was just difficult to schedule and to sail still. And there was kind of like, you fell out of the youth scene. And with that kind of, my sailing kind of stopped a little bit. And I learned how to windsurf in the meantime, because I was, I could do it by myself. And partway through university, when I was 19, my dad actually got pancreatic cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but there was some good stuff that came out of it. And one of it was he told me to live my life before I didn't have the chance. And so, I finished university, and got myself a job, what you're supposed to kind of do. And I remember sitting downtown Vancouver, looking out the window, and the flag is blowing hard on a sunny, beautiful day. And I'm like, I'm 21 years old. This kind of sucks. Just stay inside. I have to. And I basically decided to move to Maui. I had been invited by a friend to go to Maui and check it out. And after that, I was dead set on going to go there and live there and try to become a good windsurfer, a professional windsurfer. And a year and a half into that, I was asked by a former sailing competitor of mine if I wanted to try to team up with her and try to qualify Canada for the Olympics. And so this was like 3.5 years prior to the next Olympics or something like that. And so it was like, sailing in Maui with a bikini or moving to Halifax in like frigid waters.
Little different.
Very different. Yeah. So I hummed and hawed about it, but at some point, like that Olympic dream kind of pulled me. And so I decided to give it a 3-month trial. And I left Maui, went to Halifax, which is East Coast Canada. And after 6 weeks of training, we went to the World Championships and we came 16th, which was good enough to make national team and become kind of carded athletes, which means that we get a little bit of support. And with that, also our chances of, like we could make top 16 in the world, like maybe we can make the Olympics. And so the next couple of years was a grueling, task basically. And we ended up qualifying for Athens 2004. So that dates me a little while ago. Yeah. It's like 6, of course.
So impressive though. Like, very cool. So many Olympics.
And for your first Olympics to be the Athens Olympics is also very cool.
So special.
Yeah. It's the birthplace of the Olympics. So it was really, really neat to watch it. Or watch it take part in Athens and to be part of that. And then I switched, I guess everything's great like during the Olympics. And it's like, we can do this again. And, this was so great. And, we can improve our result, which we came a 13th and we had like a second in a race. So it's like, we can totally do this again. And afterwards I came home and I realized that my passion really did lie in windsurfing. And then I wanted to go back to it. And they had just announced a different type of windsurfing in the Olympics. And the previous kind was not fit for my size. So I had to be a lot smaller than I was. And so this new equipment, I was like, like it's bigger board, bigger sail, like for me. And so I decided to try the windsurfing. And it kind of pulled me in. And after another 4 grueling years of trying to learn a new sport, I qualified for the Beijing Olympics. And then it kind of continued.
Oh, wow. So in total, which Olympics, for the audience that haven't heard, which Olympics did you attend and participate in?
Right. So I went to Athens 2004, and that was it's called a 470 dinghy. So it's 2 girls on a 2-person boat with a mainsail, jib, spinnaker, and a trapeze.
Cool.
Then I went to Beijing 2008 and London 2012 on the windsurfer. It was called the RSX windsurfing class. And then they actually ousted windsurfing from the Olympic slate right before the London Olympics. So when London finished, the windsurfers, that was kind of like, and that's it. Like no more windsurfing. And so interestingly enough, on the last night of the Olympics, one of the Canadian team coaches kind of match made me with another guy on the Canadian team for this boat called the NACRA 17, which is a catamaran. And I didn't really pay attention when windsurfing was kicked out of the Olympics. They brought in these other classes, but I didn't pay attention because I didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah, your love was not there. Yeah. Windsurfing wasn't present.
Yes. But this coach kind of match made me with this guy, Luke, and Luke's from Vancouver as well, my hometown. And so when we came home, we talked about it and we decided, well, we'll give it a go. Because it was also the first time ever that it was a mandatory guy-girl combination. And so with that, it was like, okay, well, let's try. And this catamaran, a catamaran is a 2-hulled boat and it goes super fast. So it's kind of sort of halfway in between like this well, it's as fast as windsurfing kind of sometimes. And so that was learning how to sail. That was like taming a beast. And I had many injuries and it was definitely difficult.
Oh, whole new world.
New world. But with that, we qualified for the Rio Olympics. And then I basically thought I was retired. And so I came back home and I continued my coaching business. And it wasn't until 2019 where, I always kind of look at the results and follow what's going on. And I saw that there was an opportunity for windsurfing to still qualify for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. And so I was intrigued and I got a little motivated to train and Canada did qualify to get a spot. And then I won the first of two qualifiers. And a week before the second qualifier, COVID hit. And so that became a whole year of waiting of whether it's going to even happen. How is it all going to pan out?
So much uncertainty.
Yeah.
I mean, for everyone, right? Yes. The Olympics was the least concerned, but someone that's kind of waiting for like, do I continue training? Do I not?
Yeah.
Right.
In the end, obviously, Tokyo 2020 happened in Tokyo 2021. And so I got to represent Canada for my fifth time in Tokyo. And then I had I had a brief 4-month stint of trying to come back for the Paris 2024 Olympics.
Amazing. Like such an amazing journey. That's just the longevity of your athletic career is just so impressive to me. I'm just amazed. I am a little curious and I loved hearing about this last time and I'd love a refresher. So we're in an Olympic year right now. The Olympics just wrapped up at the time of us recording this, and it has just been such a fun experience to watch sports that I wouldn't normally watch or learn a little bit more about something I didn't know before. So can you walk us through what the competition looks like for sailing and windsurfing? Is it a race? Is it obstacles? Is it sort of ability? What does that look like for the audience?
Yeah, so for the audience, sailing is really hard to follow, and windsurfing. They try to do a good job with the media with it, but it's a course race. So sailing and windsurfing has always typically been a course race where everyone starts on a starting line together at the same time, or you try to start at the exact same.
The waves.
Sure. Yes, there's wind and weather or wind and waves to contend with, and it's based on like a countdown, and there's this imaginary line between the race committee boat and like a pin boat, which is the other end of the starting line. And unlike, say, running where everyone has a specific lane that they need to start in, with sailing, you jostle for position. So you do all sorts of, wind readings and trying to see where you want to go on the course before the start. And so you determine where you want to start on the starting line. Now, if there's a lot of people with the same thinking as you're going to be fighting with a lot of different boats or that same spot. So it becomes quite difficult, the starting line, and you want to start with speed, obviously, when the gun goes. And then you follow a course. So there's marks around that you have to sail upwind, and there's all sorts of different points of sail that you have to go on until the finish. And, it's just first, second, third, fourth. It's not timed. So that's normally what windsurfing and sailing racing is. And then they brought in a new type of windsurfing this time around for Paris, where you had the course racing, But then you also had slalom racing.
Oh, yes.
Similar kind of to downhill or slalom ski racing.
Sure.
So it's really quick, over in 3-4 minutes. And then we also had what was called a marathon race. So 40 something kilometers or, 26 plus miles. And that race, you all started at the same time and you were out somewhere. And it was fairly crazy sometimes because we sailed from one island in the Canaries to another Canary island and back. And so you didn't see land sometimes and, in big, huge waves. So it made it very dynamic.
Yeah, I remember the last time you were describing it, you said it's kind of like a moving chessboard. And that is just such an amazing visual to me, plus whales.
Well, plus whales. and there's a lot of strategy and tactics involved because, if some other boat was to go the same direction as you, they might be kind of stealing your wind, or you would be in their wind shadow, which would slow you down. So if you try to get clear wind, but they don't want you to get ahead of them, they might tack or maneuver so that they're again stealing your wind. So it becomes very strategic and tactical. So it is like playing chess on a moving, surface, kind of with ever-changing
with a giant equipment.
And wind and waves. Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal. And you have to look at clouds to see what clouds are doing. And,
I'm curious, you mentioned working with a partner in some of these situations. So it sounds like windsurfing you've done alone, but the other forms of sailing you've done with a partner.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what is I can imagine working in such a small space with another person can be complicated. So what are the partnership dynamics there? And then I also hear this isolation piece in being alone, traveling totally alone on a windsurfing vehicle, a windsurfing boat?
Yes, boat. A vessel.
Nope. Board.
All of the words for board left my brain. But I can imagine that the idea for me of not seeing land for any amount of time feels very scary. So I'm curious about some of the mindset that goes into working with a partner and then also sort of navigating some of these things totally alone.
Yeah. And I mean, with the teammate, you've got a teammate around. And with that, you have to work on communication, teamwork stuff. It's not always going to be unicorns and fairy tales and, butterflies. And so there's going to be mistakes made, how you talk to each other, the tone of voice you talk to each other, and the division of the tasks, who does, all the responsibilities. And it's not just the actual sailing. There's responsibilities outside of it. So, the fundraising, the logistics, the getting around, the coaching, you have to book your accommodation. You have to, who manages the finances, the marketing, the updates and all that. So it's usually a division of, who's good at certain things or who has more interest in certain things. So with my teammate, Luke, he was very technical. He was an engineer. And so he really enjoyed the tinkering with all the equipment. And, it's very, very technical. And for me, that was not my strong suit. And I didn't like spending 12 hours down at the boat park, basically. And so my job was way more physical. So I needed to recover more, go to the gym more. And I was, the marketing, the communications, the fundraiser. I was the behind the scenes, cog that made the machine continue to go forward. So teamwork can be extremely satisfying when it's going well, and it can be extremely difficult when it's not. And so we worked with coaches, we worked with sports psychologists, because you basically had to almost read each other's mind. And you were in very, there's calm situations, and there was very, very crazy, like potentially life-threatening situations as well, that you had to count on each other and you had to have trust. And sometimes, when the trust is broken for a bit, it's very hard. Meanwhile, on a windsurfer, you are by yourself. And, you live all the highs on your own and you live all the lows on your own as well. So in a boat, you can blame each other, but or you can kind of, go through the bad times together and celebrate together. But when you're by yourself, it's really, when you do something that's not so good or smart, it's you.
Yeah.
There's no one to blame but you.
Yeah, I can imagine that any competition, but especially an Olympic setting, is full of stressors, a lot of high risk, high reward, a kind of a difficult emotional space to be in. How did you manage your mental health during those times? How did you manage the balance between the physical demands of what you were doing, plus the mentality that an athlete needs to be in to do the best they can while taking care of themselves?
Right. I mean, luckily for some of it, I was already a coach. So I knew it helped to do a lot of personal work to see how, what worked for me. And what worked for me doesn't always work for someone else. So everyone needs to discover that on their own. As mentioned earlier, I couldn't spend 12 hours at the boat park. I would go crazy, basically. My teammate could. So I would leave and I would try to do something else, have something else in my day. There's obviously the recovery for my physical well-being and recovery. But then there was also getting out and doing something else, seeing different things, immersing myself in a different culture, or, I did window shopping, just walking, which is active recovery, where you kind of got to think about nothing. You just got to look and see things, whether it's trees or, you get to exist and kind of blend in a little bit. And that was really, really helpful for me, just to have a complete away from sport. And then, of course, you have, or the sailing family, or when you're in the 5-ring circus.
The 5-ring circus. That's a great nickname. Yeah. I've actually never heard that before. That's fantastic.
Neither have I.
So, I mean, the sailors, we all sort of know each other. Within our classes, you know each other. And so you have friends and people you hang out with and do things with. So that's really helpful as well. You've got family, abroad, kind of they become your family. And I think that's part of it. Having a good team around you helps.
Support system, for sure.
Yeah, support system, especially having a great support system at home as well. So, and that includes anyone from my chiropractor, my massage therapist, my physio, those became some of my, closest people, because you saw them the most, probably. But it was great to have that support at home too.
Yeah. So it sounds like the takeaways I hear are a support system, both where you were at and then from afar. And then I also heard separating yourself from the activity you're sort of immersed in daily, which is the surfing and sailing, and just doing something that is not related to those things, sort of just taking a step away.
Yeah. And I think, that kind of, now I see it, it's relates to work-life balance. A lot of people now working from home. It's home and work can be so the same. And and it's how do we take ourselves out of the work mode and give our themselves a break from it. And, how do you detach, decompress so that when you do show up for work the next day, you are fresh and you can come back with like the energy, enthusiasm, motivation. And for me, I needed like a clear break. So
yeah, the boundaries get a little bit blurred. That reminds me of something I wanted to touch upon again. And that was sort of the excitement, like maintaining excitement and not getting jaded, because I kind of feel like that can apply to everyday life. I'm sure with an athlete, things get so tough. And I'm sure there's many times you want to quit. How do you kind of keep going? And how do you get excited about transitions when they happen as well?
What kind of transitions?
It could be any, it could be like to a different discipline within your transition, kind of like how you did with between sailing and windsurfing. Or it could be like, okay, I'm taking a step away from this practice in general and focusing my attention towards something else. Like I'm closing a chapter completely.
Well, transitions are definitely difficult. I think everyone goes through them in life, whether it is, transitioning, out of school to college or university, and then out of that into a real job or maternity, paternity leave or retirement. I've retired a couple times from sport and kind of kept going back, which is very funny because, a lot of people that retire end up going back and dabbling
doing
in
something.
Yeah. Because it's really hard to just switch.
Stop.
Sure. And to figure out, or this is hard. I'm trying to figure out. I think when you transition and you go into something new, like when I switched from sailing to windsurfing, I had to have so much belief in myself, which I really didn't, but I had to kind of pretend and march on as if I did.
I love the delusion can take you so far. Fake it till you make it.
Yes. It kind of goes along with, I have a motto and I shared it with you guys before, but dare to dream, dare to achieve, and dare to succeed. It's very, very daunting to have a big goal. And so when I switched first from sailing to windsurfing, and I had to try to believe or dream that it was even possible. And then I had to say it publicly, which was like even scarier, because with that came a lot of, the naysayers.
It's like, what if I fall? And then you have that in your mind too, or anyone might have that in their mind.
Well, yeah, I'm a nobody trying to do, like, who am I to say that I'm going to do this?
It's vulnerable for sure.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah, big vulnerable.
And so that's where it's like the dare to dream. And then the dare to achieve, it's like, it is risky. You are putting yourself out there. It's scary. And whenever you try anything new, it is. But the flip side of the coin is, if you don't try, then you never know. And, I fear the harder thing to swallow for me is regret rather than failure. And so, at least I went out there and I tried my hardest. And if it didn't work, like this time around for Paris, it didn't work. I didn't give myself enough time. And so it's like, well, at least I tried. Do I wish it had worked? Of course I do.
But the what ifs are so much harder than the oh wells, and the something else is out there.
100%. Yes. And it's actually funny because, a lot of people have asked me in the past about I'd just, I'd suck at this and I'd fail and I wouldn't want to continue. And, they think Olympians have got it all figured out and they're so good and like they never fail and stuff. And it's actually like, we're Olympians, or anyone that's top of their game is probably pretty good at losing.
Tell me more about that. What's it like to be good at losing?
Well, you don't like it. And so you get back up and you try it again. Versus other people don't get back up. They're like, okay, I tried it. It didn't work. I'm done. I'm out of here. Versus you try something, you fail, you get back up, you try it again. And so with sport is the easiest example. It's like you're pushing yourself to the next level. So you're trying to get to that next level, and you compare yourself with whoever's above you, and you work and you work and you work and you work and you try to get there. And once you get there, you're like, okay, well, now I need to find somebody else that's better so I can get better.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so you're always up against someone that's pushing you, which means that you're going to, lose in a way, fall down, get back up. And each time you're climbing up the ladder a little bit. And so it's not that any of us like losing or failing. It's just that, we really want to try not to, or like we just keep at it. And so, the hunger to not fail is there more than, giving up.
Sure. Like you're not letting the weight of the failure sort of keep you down. It's sort of, I failed. That's a bummer. I'm going to keep moving forward because this is a thing that I want to close the loop on.
Yeah. And I guess that's a bummer. And it's like, okay, how do we move forward? Nobody likes failing, but it's part of it. And it's part of business. It's part of all of our lives. And so it's, how do we get over all of that to kind of get out there, try it again, figure out another way? How do we improve?
Yeah. I heard you mention at one point this piece about not believing in yourself, about you move forward even though you didn't believe in yourself. How did you keep moving forward if you didn't have that belief? What was it that kept pushing you forward if belief was absent in that moment?
Yeah, it's interesting because I struggled with it. And I mean, I think you continue to struggle with it all your career in a sense, but it drives you to try harder or push more. And I think to the outside world, you have to pretend that it's like, I got this. I'm that's okay. I'm getting there. I'm making strides. And then meanwhile, you go home and you're like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And then you have to put on that smile again, or the game face. And as one of my friends once put it, it's like, you need to have that strut, which basically means it's game time. It's like, I'm here to, do my thing. And
I like that.
It's tough. I mean, it's a battle. And knowing that every time you get out there, you're doing something to try to get better. And I think the hardest part was when I switched from sailing to windsurfing. I lost all my sponsors and I lost all my support. And so I started from fresh. And so how do you conjure up support when you don't really have, support or results, for example, in a new discipline? And so you have to be creative and I guess very disciplined until, improvements can be seen, and slowly and surely kind of keep pecking away at things.
Hi, listeners. I'm Jessica Budjanowski, and welcome to our True Connection segment. It's your source for Gamma Phi Beta information, special stories of our sisterhood, and tools to get you involved. Now, I got to meet Nikola in Seattle for our 150th Coast to Coast celebration. Wow. Getting to know the sister from Canada was so incredible. And fun fact, did you know that we have 3 Canadian collegiate chapters and 2 Canadian alumni chapters? So our first Canadian collegiate chapter was our Alpha Alpha chapter in Toronto, founded in 1919. That's when we became an international sorority. That's pretty cool. All right, let's get back to Nikola. I was so moved by her drive for excellence and learning to work with others, and a lot of which she learned from our sisterhood. Sure, we have a lot of fun with our sisters at formals or football games, but we also become leaders while we're here. Gamma Phi Beta offers outstanding leadership programming, from self-paced online learning to officer retreats and leadership training for our alumni. I can't help but think that Nikola's leadership journey was really enhanced by the leadership skills and tools that Gamma Phi Beta provided her. I want to call out 3 specific programs that we have: the Real Leadership Retreat, the Real Leadership Experience, and the Clara Project. Now, the Real Leadership Retreat is Gamma Phi Beta's premier leadership conference, and it's for incoming executive councils and chapter advisors. Now, this retreat is really designed to help executive councils build that trust among their team, really cultivate leadership skills, and establish those goals and vision for their chapter in that upcoming year. The Real Leadership Experience is this retreat-style leadership event for our emerging leaders that are ready to take the next step in their leadership journey. It's a place for those in their first or second year of membership to really shine. Members are also going to learn about the real leadership principles that they can apply in their chapters, their careers, and even in their communities. And then my personal favorite, the Clara Project. The Clara Project offers leadership development for our alumni members, and it really helps them prepare for high-level committee and board service inside and outside of Gamma Phi Beta. Participants engage in online educational modules, small group work, self-assessments, all while gaining exposure to current and past Gamma Phi Beta leaders and current International Council initiatives. It's a really phenomenal program. For more information about our leadership programming for collegians and alumni, visit gammaphibeta.org. I'm Jessica Budjanowski. Let's keep connected until next time.
Well, you've tackled so many hurdles. I mean, not just on the course, but in terms of navigating career and life changes, things of that nature. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your perspective on goal setting and setting those goals. Because I think some of us picture an athlete out there just like, gee golly, I'm going to go to the Olympics. And they think that, but there's a lot of steps to get to that big goal. What's your thought process on setting goals to get someplace you really want to be?
Yeah. So I obviously had to set a lot of goals and had to revisit them sometimes. So, the Olympics, a very daunting goal. Whatever we have as a goal, we need to, the Olympics happens every 4 years. So typically you set a 4-year goal for that. But to get to the Olympics, you have to actually qualify before the Olympics, which means that there's a pre-Olympic kind of goal, which means you probably have to qualify to get to that qualifier or whatever that is. So that, a year out from the Olympics, there are certain qualifiers. To make those qualifiers, you have to, do other qualifiers to be even allowed to get to those qualifiers. And so it's like, okay, well, I need to be on national team. I need to do this. And then it becomes like, well, a year out or a year from now, I need to reach this level, which means that in 6 months from now, I need to, try to reach this level, which means I need to do these things. And then it breaks it down into smaller and smaller or medium term and then short term goals so that when you have weekly goals and those are much more manageable, daily goals, so that it's like, okay, I just need to do my 3 workouts today. And that's daunting enough. So it's like,
Sure.
If you can tick those off, you get that hit of dopamine, which keeps you motivated to be like, okay, I did it today. Like, okay, we can continue, and tomorrow's another day. And by the end of the week, you might be picking off like another goal. And then, you're constantly trying to tick things off in a sense, because that builds that motivation and then the momentum, and kind of helps you through when things aren't going so well.
Yeah, it almost sounds like there's a lot of being present brought into that, because I think you can look at something and be like 4 years and it could be dizzying to think about, oh, I have to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a really grounding method to look at things day at a time, week at a time, sure, minute at a time sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're just trying to get through the workout.
It sounds like you're sort of reverse engineering your way to the goal. Like what you just described was like, here is big goal. Okay, we know that this is where we want to be. What's the step to get to big goal? And then what's the step to get to step 1 of getting to the big goal? So you're sort of like working backwards from the original big goal.
It totally is. And the same applies to whether you are looking for a promotion, or, if you want to buy a house, it's like, okay, I want to buy a house. Like, I need to know how much that's going to cost.
So transferable.
Like, how, like, I need to have X amount by this time so that I can start looking, which means I need to save this much at the end of this year, which means this much per month, which means I need to put away X per week or not spend, like it is. There's a whole kind of formula, and maybe you've heard of it, SMART goals.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, we love a SMART goal. But what is the acronym for SMART goals?
Well,
familiar.
It is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic results, and time bound. So if you can have a SMART goal, then you can tick kind of these boxes, and because it's a SMART goal and it's achievable, you're moving forward. Versus if you end up making a goal that is too daunting or out of reach and you fail to hit it, you're going to get demotivated. And then it's going to be like, I don't know if I can. And then it falls to the wayside, and then it's, done.
You feel defeated. It's way harder. Yeah.
Right.
So
I'm curious, how do you know when a goal is, like, when you should maybe move away from the goal, right? Like, not every goal is suited for every person. Like, maybe not everyone that sets the goal of going to the Olympics ends up going, right? Yep. But then there are also goals where it's like, you might be demotivated for a moment, but it's just a setback, or it's maybe a learning opportunity. Maybe you just need to change some stuff up. So how do you know when you should just alter or change your process versus maybe when you should dump a goal from your sort of bucket of goals?
Good question.
Yeah, I love that. I want to know.
I'm asking for a friend, for sure, not for me.
Oh, that's tough, because I don't think it's my place to say when you should dump a goal.
Sure.
I remember, though, this one time, it was in sailing, my first sailing campaign, and it was June. We actually went to Denmark to train, and, summer in Denmark, you think summer in June, like it's going to be nice. And it was snowing, and it's like, what? Like,
what?
Come on. Yes.
In June?
Yes.
Aww.
And so you're looking forward to like summer finally. And I remember talking to my sister on the phone, and she said, well, you're either getting off the phone and you're quitting and you never look back, or you get off the phone and you're saying like, I'm doing this, and you give it your 100%. And I got off the phone and obviously gave it my 100%. Where there are problems and issues that continued and hardships, of course, because there's always going to be challenges. And I don't know when it's time to give up. And maybe that's when you feel it within you that you just don't have that passion in it anymore. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is, it's like with goals, it's supposed to make you better, or you want to be better.
Right.
At certain things, whether it is getting that promotion, getting to a certain thing, whether it's athletics or your piano exam, or if it's only hard work and it's not fun and you're hating every moment of it, you're only doing it to tick a box. I think that's where talking to a coach would probably help to figure out what is it that's actually driving you to do that. And
yeah, I think I used to work in higher education very often with like freshmen and like first year, second year students. And you could always hear in those initial conversations where a goal was being given by a parent and the goal was not self-generated by the student. And so I think in particular of this moment of the folks who are maybe in that like limbo period of like, wait, is this goal mine? Like, am I supposed to hold this? Or maybe was this something that was given to me and I'm not super psyched about holding it anymore?
Right. And I actually have coached quite a few people who finished their degrees, went into that field, whether it was accounting or whatever, worked in it for a couple of years, even got, the chartered professional accountant, certificate, like super hard, long things. And they're like, but I've always hated it. But my parents wanted me to become this. And it's like, I can't imagine doing another 30 years of this, let alone the next 5. And so, for them, it's a process of figuring out, okay, so what can we do with your skill set now? What is it that, you're passionate about that you actually want to do?
Yeah, it does seem like, I think for the biggest things in life, it really does come down to the processing, the actual journey, sort of the meat and bones of what you're doing that keeps you going.
100%. Because if you didn't enjoy the process and you didn't get to where you were going, that's really incredibly tough. And I've lived it firsthand as an athlete, because as an athlete, like you want to win or you want to make this. And, and if your whole identity is tied to that, and then you don't do whatever you were hoping for, you as a person, your whole identity crumbles.
Right.
Yet, if you can have some separation and, have a life outside of that identity, so your identity isn't solely on work or athletics or being this or being that, then it's not as harsh as a fall, or it's, you can enjoy the journey and the process more than the result.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you would tell a client who maybe they're in those very first steps of that process of who am I outside of my work or my athletic career or whatever it may be. Because I'm sure if you ask some people, they're like, yeah, I'm a this worker, I'm a that worker, I'm a teacher, I'm an accountant, or I'm a mom, or whatever it is. How do you help clients center who they are in the midst of all of these intersections?
I think most of the time, and especially with coaching, it's about being curious. So I'm not going to tell them anything that they don't already maybe know about themselves, but they just haven't gotten there yet. So
it's just a gentle help.
It's a gentle help. It's helping them kind of, by asking the questions I'd ask, I help them kind of face some of the things they might not have wanted to, or like we all push certain things out of our heads.
For sure. It's kind of funny you say that. I remember back to, times in high school or whatnot, and you'd have all these like, present yourself sort of projects. And everyone just defaults to, I'm a swimmer, I'm a cheerleader, I'm a volleyball player, I'm a soccer, just like whatever, activity you're involved in. And it always just felt so strange. So I felt like it took so long to get on that journey of like, who am I? And it'd be so cool to see that sooner for people.
100%. And I mean, I remember I had to tell some friends at one point as well that don't introduce me as an Olympian, because I became an Olympian.
The token Olympian friends.
The token Olympian friends. And I literally had people touch me or want to hug me and be like, I've never touched an Olympian. I've never hugged an Olympian. And it's like, but I'm more than that. Like, I'm also a person. I have feelings too. Like, nobody wanted to actually get to know me or what I valued or anything else that I did in my life that might, make me happy, because they were just enthralled in the whole, oh my goodness, you're an Olympian. And so, you kind of have to set boundaries around that, or, like, it's not how I introduce myself. I'm very quiet about it because I don't want it to define me. It certainly has been a huge part of me, and it's shaped me to what I do now, but it's not all of me.
Right.
I'm curious, how do you introduce yourself now, Nikola? Like, how do you talk about yourself? Like, what does that identity look like for you? You're like, we're at a party, you're introducing yourself like, hi, I'm Nikola. And then what do you say about yourself?
It's a good question. Apparently very antisocial. No. I mean, I don't, and I think maybe this is something from coaching I learned too, like, not to just identify yourself as what you do. So like, I really love doing this, or like talking about what you love to do, not just like, oh, I'm an executive coach.
Oh yeah. It's the first question everyone asks. So what do you do?
What do you do? Yeah.
It's just part of our culture. It's crazy. It's like that.
Well, and maybe it can be like, well, in my free time, I enjoy this and this and that.
Love it.
And
That's
so
nice redirection.
Because it doesn't matter, like, or I guess if I was meeting you guys or somebody else, it's like, great that you're an accountant, but like, what do you like to do? Like,
sure, right. Like, you're not going to do my taxes right now.
Yes. So like, what do you do for fun? What keeps you, sane? Like, do you like hiking in mountains, or do you like going swimming, or like, do you love cooking? And like, that's the stuff you want to connect on. And it's like, that's what builds relationships, or at least in my eyes, is that
shared passion
versus what you do. And maybe for some people that is, what they're looking for.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to hear a little bit more about some of those in the moment experiences of part of your athletic career. So I know we've, again, kind of talked about these before, but what was a really high moment that you had where it was like, yes, this was amazing? And what was a challenge that you had that you overcame during sailing, windsurfing? And maybe they're connected. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a really high note is probably walking into the Olympic Stadium during the opening ceremonies for the first time. I mean, every time it's amazing. But
you've had 5 once in a lifetime experiences. Like, it's crazy.
Yes.
Love it.
So I am lucky with that. And they were all very, very different. And I think, walking into the opening ceremonies certainly was one of the most memorable experiences, because as an athlete, you don't actually see all of it. Like, people on TV get to watch the beginning to the end.
Sure.
And as an athlete, you're stuck in some tunnel or some stadium behind the scenes, and you don't see it. And, the day starts super early. You might have to drive or fly, and then you're shuttled here and shuttled there and waiting here and waiting there. And meanwhile, you're mingling with other athletes and pin trading. If I don't know if we ever talked about that, but
we hinted at it.
Yeah.
I only know about this because I follow some Olympians on Instagram.
Okay.
But yeah, you should tell us more about the pin sharing.
So the pins, you get a whole bunch of like pins from your country and like Olympic pins. And, at first you're like, I wonder like, who's going to want this pin? But all of a sudden it is the craze. Like, you become a pin trader at the Olympics.
A pin trader. Wait, so does every country then have their own special pin? And then it's
Yes.
like it's a mark. So then it's like, yes, it's like Pokemon or something. You're like,
Yeah,
Yes.
I was thinking like the Disney parks as well, like how
Yeah.
pin collecting is very important in Disney culture as well. So it makes me
Okay.
think of that.
yes.
So everyone has their accreditations with like, what is it called? The thing around your neck.
Oh, you're a lanyard thing.
lanyard?
Your lanyard, yes. And
Yeah.
so people put the pins on there. And so you start trading and, America, Canada, Australia, we have big teams. And so there's lots of pins to be had. But Trinidad and Tobago or Aruba doesn't have many athletes.
So it's like a collectible.
It's a collectible. So it's like, ooh, like, oh my goodness, how did you get the St. Lucia pin? Like, but
Yes.
they're only going to trade with one Canadian or one American, and there's only a handful. So this becomes like, it's exclusive and elusive. So, the pin trading happens the whole entire time. And of course, you trade some with your friends on the scene. But, in the dining hall, I remember once I was waiting for something in a line for food and I got tapped on the shoulder from behind, but I knew it was a really, really tall person. So I turned around and it was literally 1.5 feet above me. It was this Polish volleyball girl.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, pin, please. And it's like, okay. Yes, I have a pin for you.
You pin. I got you.
It's like, just don't squish me. You're so tall. So it becomes like a really fun thing. So that's the pin trading.
What's your favorite? Like, what was your most coveted pin that you got?
I don't know.
No worries. I'm just curious.
I can't tell you.
Something cool. I bet, you've been to 5. Cool. I bet you've got lots of cool.
Yeah, I didn't do much in Tokyo, though. We weren't allowed to mingle.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So I got a few from my friends, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's nice to keep some for your supporters at home, too.
Oh,
so they're kind of coveted items as well. So, but
that feels like a medal to me.
A pin?
Yeah, that feels fun. Like,
it is.
You're like, I got this to take home with me. That's so cool.
Yes. So, yeah.
But walking into the stadium was like, that moment.
I mean, a huge roar. I mean, of course.
Yeah. I can imagine that is like exhilarating. It's like probably really cool to see finally after being sequestered for who knows how long to be able to see all of these other teams.
And it might be your TV moment as well.
Also true.
Oh,
Yeah. So, I've been spotted on TV a couple times. It's like, I'm here. So that's really fun. So that's probably some of the highlights.
Yeah.
And then you asked about challenges.
Yeah, because I'm sure there've been some tricky moments, especially at the Olympic level for sure.
Yeah. And I have 2, and maybe I'll share with you quickly. I know I've mentioned a couple before in the past, but one was when windsurfing was kicked out of the Olympics, and it was going to be my final Olympics in windsurfing, and they provided us equipment. So at the Olympics, we get given equipment versus bringing our own. So to make it more fair, basically. But with equipment variances, my equipment, or one piece of it, broke.
That's right.
3 times.
Oh, gosh.
And there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to get points back, to resale races, to get anything. And so, with that, I didn't do as well as I hoped I would, could have done, should have done. I still finished 10th, which was my best result, but it was, ideally going to be a much, much, much better result. And so that was one. And that's probably also a driver that when I started the NACRA sailing, it was like, okay, we can bring our own boat. Like, we don't have equipment variables.
No opportunity
To like have things break because, if it breaks and it's our fault, then it's our fault because we didn't check it thoroughly enough and stuff. And there my teammate got sick. And so that was like, 2 devastating 4 years of hard work, kind of crushed twice in a row. And so that's kind of what made me go back to try to go qualify for Tokyo. Was I wanted to finish on a positive note. I wanted to finish on my terms. I wanted to just try it again and enjoy the process.
Yeah, that seems like a huge motivator. We've all had challenges, but that seems like that was a driver in overcoming those challenges almost.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a coach and a therapist for quite a while. It was
amazing.
A struggle because there is something called post-Olympic depression that happens regardless. It happens to medalists, happens to normal athletes, and
happens to me now that it's done. I'm so sad.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And all of the volunteers. And, I think anyone that works towards something big, there is that, like, oh, the adrenaline that keeps you going. And then you get there, and then there's like, oof, the slump after. Your body relaxes, your mind relaxes, the adrenaline's gone. And lots of times you get sick physically. And here, after the Olympics, like, you don't need to wake up. You don't need to go to the gym. Nobody calls you. Nobody expects you anywhere. Nobody cares about you. There's no media. There's no, you're nothing anymore, almost. And so that took a big toll on, this was how my career was going to end. And I had to reinvent myself. We talked a little bit about transitions, how to work through that. Worked with a coach, was a coach, did all of that fun, hard work, and got myself to a better place, and was able to separate myself from sport, relearned how to enjoy doing sport because it wasn't fun anymore. Like the passion got sucked out of you after a while.
Sure.
And then, it was motivating to be like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to be able to finish on a high. And I was actually the oldest woman on the Canadian Olympic team for Tokyo.
That is just so impressive. What a huge accomplishment. And I love that we're seeing athletes competing, as they age. It's not like, well, I'm done at 30. I'm no longer young. I'm not an athlete. Like, I love that we're seeing age diversity as well.
Yes, absolutely. You saw it these last Olympics as well. Like, there's a lot of athletes going back for more and more Olympics. And, while your body isn't quite the same as in your 20s and early 30s, you've got different wisdom. You need to apply, recovery is much more important, but yourself better, and you're not caught up in the same things as you are caught up in when you're younger. And so I had probably a better experience when I was older because
that's awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah. I also want to pause this quickly because we've talked a lot about coaching and sports, and I want to differentiate what we're talking about here. So, Nikola, can you give us a little brief explanation on what is the difference between athletic coach versus what you do with executive coaching? And then I'd also love for you to talk a little bit about Own Your Podium as well.
Right. Okay. So sport coaching is basically like you have an expert coach that knows, your sport inside and out, and they tell you what to do. It's like, you need to do this better. You need to do this faster. You need to put your hand here or this there.
The techniques.
And the techniques. Yeah. And the big differentiator is they tell you, they advise you to do certain things, versus in professional coaching or executive business coaching, you aren't the expert. The person that you're coaching is the expert and you're helping them. So you act as a guide, as a thinking partner to help them move forward and to work through figuring it out themselves, basically. And so that is the main difference. I don't need to be an accountant to help an accountant. I don't need to be, a CEO to understand what they go through, or a middle manager, or, a student trying to figure out whether they want to continue in their studies or not. But I can certainly ask the questions to help them figure out what's best for them. And through my company, Own Your Podium, it's basically I help people own their podium, whatever that is to them. So whether it is getting that promotion, whether it is first time wanting to run a marathon, whether it is did I mention, like, whether it's that promotion, whether it's to start their own company, whether it's dealing with, burnout, how to get over burnout or not get to burnout, work-life balance, the mental health exercise piece, procrastination, imposter syndrome, motivation, all of that stuff. It's whatever someone wants to do to better themselves, I help them own their podium.
I am curious what the biggest aha moment you've seen with a client through Own Your Podium was. Like, what was a time when you saw someone really change their mindset and see something as possible?
Oh my goodness. I'm
sure there's a lot.
There's a lot. And so there's not one that comes to my mind straight away. I guess one actually was somebody that was very high in a bank and could take the next step to basically run a national bank, but it would mean moving from one side of the country to the other. And their family didn't want to move and basically would disown them if that's what, they said that the family would be doing because of their job. And we worked through, their values and what's important to them. And in the end, they decided that, their family was more important than having the bigwig job, and decided to stay and start his own company, where he is now the CEO.
Wow.
And it was such a struggle for them, because it's like it was a dream that they had and they'd worked so hard for so long, and then to have to choose. And maybe for some people it's really easy to choose the family or the job or whatever that is, but for them it was finally they got it, basically.
Yeah.
But they'd have to sacrifice something else. And so it was such an internal battle of, where do their values really lie? And, short-term gain, long-term pain, and so they ended up choosing what was best for them.
Beautiful. I also hear like an element of like a sunk cost in this story too, of like when you get to a certain place in your career, it starts to feel like, well, I can't make a big change now. I spent all this time and money doing X, Y, or Z. So if I shift tracks, that was a waste. Like I've wasted all that time. It sounds like that person was maybe also in that headspace of like, I spent all this time working for this bank to like get to this point. Why do I have to choose now?
Yeah. And a lot of people go through that when they want to change careers as well. I've done this career for this long and I'm going to be starting from scratch.
Yeah. So scary.
It's so scary. And I've been there.
It's also not totally true, right? Like you're not absolutely starting from scratch. It feels that way, right?
Yeah.
Like it certainly feels that way. I want to validate the feeling, but it's also not true. Your support system is still there.
Well, and all the valuable skills, the transferable skills are there. And, with time and all that you've spent in your previous career, you're going to be able to move through the ranks quicker.
Right.
And so same with me when I changed sports, yes, it was completely different, and I had to relearn, or I had to learn new things, but there's certain skills that were still there that I could benefit from before. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to move up faster.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd love for you to share a little bit, Nikola, if you have any thoughts or recommendations for listeners who are considering getting a coach. So I think, like therapy, not every therapist is a great fit for every client. Not every coach is the best fit for every other person. What are some things you think listeners should be thinking about or ask a potential coach if they're trying to find someone to work with?
So I think fit and connection is really important. And so, if you have one session or even a discovery call, so like, for example, I do a discovery call, which is, 20 minutes for free. And that's something to figure out, like, do you guys connect? Can you talk to each other? Like, is there good chemistry there? And if yes, great, you can continue working. If not, there's plenty of other people out there. You don't have to be like confined to working with someone that's like, I don't know. And what's happened a lot is people read the bios, right? They see the bios, they see the pictures, and it's like, oh, they look really nice. Or look at their bio, and, their bio can look all fancy and, with all of these certifications, which are great. But I always describe it to people as it's kind of like online dating. The bio might look really great, but if they're all this, but you still don't connect, it doesn't matter. So connection is the most important thing. And so, connect with them, see if you like them, and then start with them. And you can always, doesn't mean you're signing up for life. You can work with someone for a specific time, and you can, maybe it's really good for that period of time for a certain purpose. And then it's like, you know what, I want somebody different who's more this part of my life now that I want to work on.
Right. Yeah. I think that people can get really caught up in the rabbit hole of it where, I have to keep doing this and chasing that. But yeah, that's a great breakdown that things can be specific to certain minutes, moments of your experience.
Yeah. And it's good to have other people, because everyone has different backgrounds and experiences and different ways of communicating or using analogies or, whatever that is. And so everyone relates or resonates with people differently. So some people might want someone that has religious undertones, or someone that is more, culturally the same background, or something like that. So that's also important.
Yeah. So I know we're kind of wrapping up towards the end of our time, and we've talked a lot about coaching and goals and visualizing things for yourself. So I'd love to know, what is next for Nikola? What are your hopes and dreams for the future? Where do you see things going for yourself?
Well, I don't have a 4-year plan or a goal yet. That's for sure. I am working as a coach. So that's what I do. And I love doing that. I still windsurf. So I dabble in my sport whenever I can, because it's something that I actually really enjoy doing, which kind of keeps one toe in the door for competitions. I won't say a whole
love it. Yes.
So with that, it's like, keeping fit and healthy, because that's also something that I want to do for myself and longevity.
Sure.
I have my family. I love gardening. I do a lot of projects. I am never bored. So
that's a huge accomplishment, by the way, to never be bored. That's great.
I think I said that during COVID, because so many people were bored, and I was like, I have always things to do. maybe I just take on too much, but I like being busy, and I like ticking boxes. And I know that's not always super healthy if it's too much, but being out in the garden or playing with my cat is meditative, or it helps me refresh so that I can show up to coaching refreshed and fully present.
Love it. Yeah, being in the present, and then those future things come as they do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's lots of dream goals that I still have, so baby steps towards them.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait. I can't wait to see all the great things to come.
We're going to go through some rapid fire questions with you and say whatever comes to your mind. First and foremost, there's no wrong answers here. I'm going to kick us off with, what Gamma Phi value resonates most with you? Love, labor, learning, or loyalty?
Loyalty.
No hesitation there. That was great.
Confident. Oh, wonderful. What's something that brought you joy this week?
I fixed some walls in the house that we got new windows. It's embarrassing to say, but 2 years ago, and there was there's some holes inside that needed work on, and it always was such a daunting task to do that. And so I kind of just started and I finished.
I love it. I love that something that brought you joy was like something that would be daunting to so many people, and like overcoming a challenge. That is so cool.
Yeah. All joy welcome here. This question might go with what the process you just went through was, which is, what is something new that you've learned? And maybe it has to do with windows. I don't know. I don't know how you fix a window.
Walls.
Well, it wasn't a window. It was merging plaster with drywall. So I have an old house which was lath and plaster, and the drywall is very straight. The lath and plaster isn't, and there's holes in between, and I had to kind of fill them, putty them, tape them, that to make them smooth and not, and it's a curved roof. So it was, it was a learning process, and that was something new. Now I'm not scared of that anymore.
What's something you would tell your college self?
Not to worry about what other people think of you.
Oh, snaps to that. That is a big one.
Nikola, can you tell us about the moment you chose Gamma Phi? When did you know that you were going to say, I guess, yes to Gamma Phi? We'll call
That's
it that.
the one for me.
I think joining with one of my best friends now, or best sisters, friends, the loyalty piece. And so we bonded during the initiation and stuff. And that was, I think we talked yesterday. So
look at that. Lifelong friendships.
Awesome.
So cool.
So that's cool.
What was one moment in Gamma Phi that prepared you for where you are today?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's several, but I think one was I brought Sporty Spice to the sororities. So it wasn't very athletic at the beginning. And I brought the athleticism to it, or, not even that I wasn't an Olympian or I didn't do anything, but I joined, I did like the lunch hour running things. And there was all sorts of things where we ended up signing up as team, like Team Gamma Phi Beta and stuff. And so that
good flavor to the mix.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. So that's just one of the things. There's many more.
And now everyone's favorite question. If you could nominate any person in the world for membership to Gamma Phi Beta, who would it be? And by everyone's favorite question, I do mean everyone except for Nikola, because you don't like big, vague questions. And this is sort of a big, vague question.
A lot of people in the world out there.
Yes, there's a lot of people in the world, and
A lot of choices.
And I actually spoke about her earlier today. And I spoke about her in this conversation too. My training partner, she was a Swiss girl. And so her name's Manon. And she was trying to qualify for the Paris Olympics as well. She's a mother with 3 kids and took this on, with 3 kids in tow for some of it. And she was such a wonderful training partner, a wonderful friend. It was amazing to see her work ethic. And I think she was phenomenal for me to re-enter the scene and be able to work with someone like her, because it made all the difference for me.
Oh, she sounds like a great fit.
Yeah. We'll get a Switzerland chapter ready. I think we can make this happen.
Let's get the Yes. I think we'll make it happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the True and Constant podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Lex. Stay true to you.
True and Constant is brought to you by Gamma Phi Beta sorority. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving a gift to the 150th by going to gammaphibeta.org/150/podcast. Special thanks to our co-hosts, Emma Oremus and Lex Stewart. Jessica Bujanowski for the True Connection segment. Our editor, John Haight, and executive producers, Megan Kruger and Shauna Wilson. Our theme music, Panko Breaded Pork Chops, written by Michael Thomas Gager, performed and produced by Mikey Gager. Thank you for listening.